some crypto chat. We know that the halving is imminent, basically. CNBC says it's going to be tonight. I'm interested to hear what Brandon has to say. So we'll get him in here in just a minute. But before we get there, let's take a look at what's going on in the markets. Obviously, if you were up late like I am, it was a crazy night. We had Israel respond to Iran's attack, and that sent the futures in the market down. It sent the cryptos down. Bitcoin got down to 60,000. It might have even broken below that, but now the markets have come back. So let's take a look at the chart of the SPY here, and you can see that we are in a bit of a downtrend. We have labeled the wave 4. We continue to move to lower lows, so we're getting awfully close to that 38.2% fib corrective level. I think that's probably where we're destined to go. It seems that way anyway. The major point of support is now 480. We broke 500. We filled the gap right here between 500 and 505 or so. Didn't know if we could hold that. We didn't. So we've broken below that today. And regardless of what happens into the close today, we're getting a little bit of an intraday bounce. In fact, using this new HUBB financial software, you now can go intraday. And so here's the live chart, 3-minute chart. And down here, it says you need more data points. So if you're new using it, all you need to do is compress the chart a little bit so it has enough data to put the Elliott Wave pattern on. And then you can spread it back out if you want, and the Elliott Wave pattern will stay on. You can see we hit this wave 5 target on the intraday chart. I like to look at the 3-minute chart, as you saw. So there was the move lower there. Then we bounced up. And we had a little bit of a bounce higher a few minutes ago. We seem to be heading a little bit lower now. Maybe we head lower into the close. But as far as the whole war thing, Israel said they're done. They did their response. Iran says they're not going to respond. So that it was wild overnight with what was going on intraday. So we'll take a look at where we finish the day next week on the EWO channel show that we do on Mondays. But I do feel like the market is just dismissing any chance of a rate cut in June, July, or August. The whisper number is September. Maybe we get a cut in September. Let's go ahead and take a look at a chart of the TNX real quick because rates are driving things right now. Rates are moving back to the upside. Look how this zigzag pattern just absolutely nailed what was going on with the TNX. So we have a beautiful zigzag. Right at the 61.8% B wave correction. That gives you 100% extension. That's where we are. So rates are kind of pegging right here. I don't think that we're going to have any sort of a significant move in the markets between now and April 26th, which is when that PCE deflator report comes out, the Fed's favored inflation indicator. So maybe we just continue with this little bit of a drip to the downside until then. We don't normally talk about the Dow here, but I thought I'd show you a quick chart of the DIA. And so when you look at that, you can see that we come down and we're in an area of support here. We're right at the 38.2% fib level on the DIA. Is that going to hold? It's a little bit ahead of the SPY. As you notice, we haven't quite got down to that level yet on the SPY, but we are here on the Dow. And you have to wonder, are we going to be able to hold this level? Because if you're a trader of the Dow, if we can't hold here or right in this area, it's a big drop. Now we're looking at 350. There's nothing to stop it. I should draw through the arrow. It's a more than 45 angle move, pretty vertical move between 350 and 375 there on the Dow. So this is going to be a level to watch next week. If we can hold in here next week, then maybe we can start looking towards rate cuts again. But boy, if we get a hot PCE report on the 26th, then I think it's watch out below. More movement to the downside, moving into whoever or whenever we may have a potential cut on rates. And we'll start talking about if we have a decent PCE report as far as being a high reading on there. We may be talking about no rate cuts at all. And I don't think the market's going to handle that very well. if that's what ends up happening. So those are your areas to watch here on the SPY. So I just wanted to give you a quick brief market rundown, but it's crypto day, right? We're talking all things crypto. I do want to show you the charts real quick, and then we'll bring the expert in. I am no crypto expert, don't claim to be, but I am smart enough when I know that I'm not an expert on something, find those that are. We have who I think is the leader. You've heard him before when Brandon comes on. And so really interested to hear his take on not only what happened overnight with the war, but his view on is the halving going to happen tonight? Is that right? I don't put a whole lot of faith in what CNBC says, but it does seem like it's imminent at some point in time. But there's a chart of Ethereum. Let's start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin had this big run up, and we've talked about this in the past, that in front of a halving, you have a bit of a run up. I thought maybe we might go a little bit higher, but Brandon called this level. This is exactly where he said we're going to go. We just got there a little faster than I thought we would, but he was spot on. And so super anxious to hear where he thinks things go from here. But we've moved into, this is a traditional or the newer kind of flag pattern where you have a vertical run up, which is what we had here in Bitcoin. So you have this big vertical run up move. And then I always equate it to golf, right? Everybody knows that. And now we have rectangular flags on the golf course. But before, in the past, they were triangles. And so we had a little bit of a consolidation pattern here. Still a flag pattern, whether you like it with a triangle following the run-up or the more talked about move now for a flag pattern in recent times, which is that rectangular pattern. So we just have been moving between 60,000 and 72,000 on Bitcoin, just back and forth, generating this really nice trading range. It doesn't want to give up 60,000. We haven't been able to get above 72,000, but all I can say is that
Rob,
yeah,
you're currently on SPY.
Oh, I forgot. I got to change the chart. Thank you for reminding me. So many platforms, so much to remember. All right, so now we'll get over to where you can see the chart on Bitcoin. So this is where we're going to stay. Bring Brandon in. Yeah, forgot about that. Thanks, Ryan. But there's the pattern that I was talking about. The vertical run up. We had a triangle. It morphed into a rectangle. So whether or not you like the old school view of a flag or the new school view, it's still a flag pattern, which is a breakout pattern. So something's going to happen in crypto. There's the support at 60,000. The resistance is 72,000 that I was talking about. And then if we go over to Ethereum, we've got a slightly different pattern here. Still consolidation, but it's been of a descending triangle pattern here. And that would, in some realms, be viewed as a little bit more bearish. But one thing I try to remind people is, regardless of what you read out there, where a descending triangle means you're going to break lower and ascending triangle means you're going to break higher, I think I've done as much work on triangles as anybody out there, and I can tell you the data doesn't support that. The data says that if you have a triangle, whether it's ascending, symmetrical, or descending, you're going to have a breakout. So we're going to have a breakout in Ethereum. We're likely going to have a breakout in Bitcoin based on those two patterns. So at this point in time, I'd love to bring in Brandon and get his thoughts, because on Crypto Day, you'd much rather hear from him than me. So, Brandon, you out there? There he is.
Yeah, Rob, I appreciate you bringing me in, and I appreciate you saying that stuff. I a little bit of nostalgia seeing all your chart reads on a lot of these things, and it's interesting the things you bring up. Oh, I can explain that from a technical standpoint or from a mathematical standpoint. So this is really cool, and I miss being with you because I think this is so interesting. Crypto, you brought up the war last night. That impacted futures as well, right? I mean, not the war, I guess the strike, right? Last weekend, we saw the initial, this happened over the weekend initially, where Israel fired those drones off, and it hit crypto really hard because it was the only market that was open. And so it actually took a major hit on Bitcoin and everything else. And then once they got that all taken care of, everything kind of bounced back. And we've been in a holding pattern since then. So it's very interesting to see what happened last night as well, but then that got resolved this morning very quickly. But I don't know if you know this or not, but you mentioned the halving, Rob. You mentioned the halving a little bit and what CNBC saying. So it's interesting to see what you're hearing about the halving. It's not bound to happen. It's not hopefully going to happen. I heard a few sources, Fox News, say it's presumed to occur or something like that. The halving is a mathematical thing that will happen no matter what, right? So it's mathematically generated. And I don't know if you can see my screen or not, Rob, but basically what we're looking at here, this is the half down countdown clock. This is over on, there's tons of them out there. And right now it does look like the halving is going to happen over in about 7 hours. And just a 2-minute history on the halving and what that is. This is mathematical. That's going to happen at block 840,000. Satoshi, when he created the Bitcoin blockchain, he mathematically programmed these halvings in. And what this is the block reward for miners is actually getting cut in half. And I can explain this with a little bit of a chart here as well. Every time we've had a halving in the past, we kind of follow this chart. Initially, miners, when they solved all those computations, they solved all those little guessing games for Bitcoin to be able to validate the blockchain, they initially got paid 50 Bitcoin per block. And a block happens every 10 minutes. So you would think, hey, they made a lot of money back then. But remember, Bitcoin was only a penny or $1. And then after 4 years, this is in 2012, the Bitcoin mining reward got cut in half to 12 or to 25. And then again in 2016 to 12.5. And recently in 2020, it got cut down to 6.25. And coming up here in 7 hours, this Bitcoin mining reward for the miners is going to be cut again to 3.25. Meaning, instead of 900 Bitcoin being produced and mined every single day, only 450 Bitcoin are going to be mined every single day now. And that's important to note because of what we're going to talk about here in a second. Everybody needs to be aware that half the amount of Bitcoin are coming into the supply now at each of these halving points. So when you see those halvings happen and there's still the same amount of buying pressure with less supply, no economist won't tell you that there's going to be a little bit of a supply shock. And a lot of people, this line here is actually what the miners start making as far as supplemental fees based on the amount of usage on the blockchain. So even though they're making less in block subsidy, they're still making the same amount. So don't you worry about the miners. They're still going to be just fine. And they're actually still going to be incentivized to validate blockchain transactions forever. But the halving is super, super important because it cuts the supply in half. And with the recent approval of the ETFs, we've had so much buying pressure in Bitcoin, we've now had a run up into this halving like we've never had before. And I kind of want to show you a chart here that I've given our good pal, Ryan. He's going to show this for us. This chart here illustrates what's happened over the last 4 halvings. And I know you emailed me too, Rob, about this. And you said, well, is this little dip or is this little pullback typical of what normally happens in the halving? And I didn't really respond, but the answer is yes. So this is the last 4 halvings they have in front of us. The first halving was a little bit more volatile of a halving, and we did still have a dip. It was about a 25% dip right before the halving. And then you see that little green dot on that chart there? That's the halving exactly. And right after that halving, things shot up crazy amount. And I'm going to show you those percentages here in a second. The second halving there, you can see that it dipped just a little bit. It actually dipped 17%. And then in 2012, it actually dipped even more after the halving. It dipped 27%, but then rebounded quickly and then jumped up a huge percentage. The third halving, which was 4 years ago to today, so this happens exactly every 4 years, every 210,000 blocks. 4 years ago today, it dipped another 18% a few weeks prior to the halving, and then it shot up right after that X amount of percent. Now, this is like clockwork every single time we have a halving. And you'll never guess, obviously, what just happened, regardless of the black swan event that is Israel and Iran or whatnot. Bitcoin has just dropped the exact same amount as it has 2 of the last 3 halvings, another 18%, leading up into the halving, which is absolutely absurd. But any mathematician that looks at Bitcoin starts to question, like, this cannot be chance. And so now we're sitting here at the halving. Supply is going to reduce here in 7 hours. We still have the ETFs ongoing with their purchases continually forever. Tokyo has ETFs that are going to start buying here in 13 days. And we have retail investors that are starting to come in. So I have one more chart that I want to show you about the exponential run-ups that we've had after the halving. If you take a look at this first halving here, the very first halving that we ever had, after the halving, Bitcoin jumped almost 10,000% the following 2 years after the halving. Now, if you look at the second halving,
10,000%. Did I hear you right?
10,000%. So that's a good 10x on your money. So you put in $100, you get $1,000, right? So yeah, that's no joke. So obviously that halving, so for the next 371 days after the halving, it went up 10,000%, 9,120% to be exact. Before the halving, you also have a run up. So if you look at the halving in 2016, you had a run up into the halving, very similar to what we just had. So keep that in mind. And then after the halving, it jumped 3,000%. This was the 2016 Bitcoin halving. Okay. So not too bad of gains, all parabolic, all mathematical. And we could just talk about this for days, obviously. And then you have the third halving. This is the 2020 halving. And this one's interesting. The run up the year before the halving, it jumped 64%, which is not bad at all. So we're talking from the bear market low, which was 2 years after the prior peak, to the bear market low, and then up into the halving, it jumped 64%. Following the halving, it jumped 679% to the peak. I and a lot of other people think that got stymied by a lot of things happening with COVID and other things. We should have saw $100,000 Bitcoin last cycle, but we didn't because of those macro events that really played into this. But still, a 7x on your money is not anything that I'd be too worried about. And now we're sitting here at halving number 4, and we had a huge run up into the halving, just like clockwork. And I predicted this on the show 2 months ago. And I don't think you were skeptical, but you looked at me, and I think you were the most supportive of my my claims that we're going to reach a new all-time high before the halving. I said we were sitting at 35,000, 40,000. I said, you know what? We're going to reach a new all-time high by the halving, and we did. And the reason that we were able to predict that so accurately is we were able to take the money flow coming from the ETFs and use a multiplier that we have that we're able to calculate what the price is going to be based on the amount of money coming in. And now that supply is cut in half at the halving, this is going to be exponentially more important going forward. And we're going to have to keep our eyes on this. Because if those ETFs continue to buy at the same rate that they have been, we're going to see an exponential jump over the next 300 to 500 days, very similar to the last 3 halvings. Nothing changes. History may not repeat, but it often rhymes, Rob. And so this is why everybody's talking about the halving right now. And if you're seeing reports about maybe this will happen, don't listen to that nonsense. Listen to me, Rob. I know what I'm talking about. I've done all the math. The only thing that's going to take this off the table is a black swan event.
Yeah, just real quick, there's several things that I want to jump in here, Brandon. First of all, you're the foremost expert that I've met, and I can certainly verify that everything that you said was going to happen has happened, maybe even a little bit, tiny bit more than what you said. So you've been absolutely spot on it. You've already taught me a few things. I didn't know there was a countdown clock. I didn't know that actually existed. I actually wasn't 100% convinced that these halvings were already pre-programmed in when Bitcoin started. I wasn't aware of that either. So it makes sense with the every 4-year cycle that we're doing it. But the point that I really wanted to get to was I'm a big believer in supply and demand. And, we look at Elliott Wave, we look at other things at ewotrader.com, and we use the HUBB Financial Software. But supply and demand drives the market. It always has. It always will. Whatever technical indicator you look at to try to analyze that, it all comes down to if there's less supply and more demand, prices are going to go up.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true, Rob, and I can illustrate that very easily as well. Oh, yeah, there you go. Sorry, you bounced away for a second. What were you saying?
I was on the supply and demand that, as you mentioned, we're going to cut the supply in half. And now we're going to have more demand than ever with all the ETFs, et cetera. So if you're a believer in supply and demand drives the markets, as I am, and obviously you are from your comments, then it seems like we're in for some fun times here with Bitcoin after this halving. But I just don't think supply and demand is ever discounted from the markets. That's what drives things. It always has, always will. So a question I got for you, Brandon, is you had mentioned in the past, and I wanted to see if your view was still the same, that there was a chance that Ethereum may take over and perform even better than Bitcoin after this halving. Are you still of that opinion, or where are you on where to go, where to put the money?
No, you bring up a good thing. So this is interesting. So Ethereum has really lagged Bitcoin this cycle, but there's a reason for that. And the reason being the ETFs have primarily focused their buying on Bitcoin. We talk about the supply and demand. Recently, the ETFs have been buying on average since their inception $225 million per trading day in Bitcoin. You do the math on that, that's about 3,500 Bitcoin, and you're a supply demand guy, you just said so. 900 Bitcoin being produced, 3,300 being purchased. That's a negative balance there. So obviously, more Bitcoin's being purchased than it's being produced. That's a problem, which means they're starting to eat into the exchanges here. And you can see the Bitcoin balance on the exchanges is now at an all-time low right now. They're eating into the exchanges. But let me answer your question here, because that's a great question. So Bitcoin has been leading Ethereum right now, and I would love to look at your charts and see this, but you can actually pull up an Ethereum/Bitcoin chart, and right now it's descending at the same rate that you just showed the Ethereum chart descending. It's really low right now, but this is typical. Typically, Bitcoin does lead the pack, and it has done so, and usually there is a lag between Ethereum and all altcoins. So if I was a buyer right now, I would definitely buy Ethereum over Bitcoin, only because I believe it will still catch up. There's a lot of adoption happening over at Bitcoin. Larry Fink over there with BlackRock just launched his real world asset fund over on Ethereum, seeded it with $100 million, and is off to the races over there, which is going to bring more adoption to the chain and start to get people using Ethereum and all of its layer 2s more and more. But not only that, Ethereum has just lagged so hard, it's bound to catch up based on past cycles, along with every other altcoin out there. If we do another show, I would love to talk about all the altcoins out there and how they're going to compound and do a parabolic curve upwards to follow a trend with Bitcoin. So that's a very good question you asked there. So
let me ask you for a couple more symbols before we wrap things up here. But as we've talked about in the past with these shows, first of all, before we get to the last couple of questions, I've had a lot of people that have written in and said they really missed the show that we used to do. Where can people find you? I know you're off doing your own crypto thing now. Where can the viewers subscribe to getting more of your information? Because I think everyone should be listening to you as far as where the cryptos are going to go, and your expertise is second to none, in my opinion. So where can people find you?
yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll put a link in the description here and on the screen of this video. But go ahead. We do over at Digital Investor, we do shows 3 times a week where we cover everything as far as what's happening in the macro environment, what's happening with crypto blockchains, new protocols coming out, as well as altcoins, what coins we're looking at as far as the biggest upside potential, along with those companies and everything else. This is your one-stop shop to basically learn everything about what's going on in crypto. We go through fundamentals as easy as setting up a wallet, holding your Bitcoin and other coins in cold storage, as well as making simple transactions on the blockchain. It's a cool little educational service that we do offer. So thanks for asking that question. Obviously, I would recommend anybody go try that out and get in touch with the crypto side of things. I think it's important to know. So.
Yeah, no, everybody's enjoyed your expertise, and I'm not buying that picture. You photoshopped the hell out of that picture. There's no doubt about that.
I think I'm wearing the same shirt. This is crazy. Is it the same shirt? Photoshop that picture. Which part? I
it
think
off,
I'm wearing
Brian.
the same shirt. Take it off.
Come on.
That's hilarious. Oh my heck.
A couple of them that I wanted to ask you about, and these are ones that we've talked about in the past as well. Solana and Cardano. Your thoughts on those? I know there's a myriad of altcoins, and just so everybody knows, on the HUBB Financial Software, we have over 200 cryptos that are going to be able to be viewed live. We've gotten the data from Refinitiv, but the new software has programming that Refinitiv can't talk to. So we have our programmers talking to the programmers at Refinitiv so that we can talk to them. So soon we'll be able to show live charts of everything. Love to have you on again at some other point, Brandon. But if we could get back, any thoughts on Cardano or Solana? I know Solana had a big run. It's pulled back a little bit. Was it Jupiter? Again, I'm no expert. Was it Jupiter that was driving Solana? Do I have that right, or am I wrong there?
Close. Good. No, you got all the right players in the right protocols. You're good. Cardano, if you don't mind, let's just go ahead and skip that. Charles Hoskinson is really frustrating lately. We've actually worked and dealt with him through some of our other partners and some of the other companies that we're working with. He had a really distinct advantage with his Cardano blockchain. Now they've really failed with their midnight launch. They've lost all their partnership, basically potential there. They screwed up. Basically, the other company that was helping them launch midnight took off and ran with it and did, well, nothing with it. But they ran with it and basically took it away from Cardano, which is unfortunate. Now, Cardano is kind of floundering. To me, that is not a buy right now. I'm not looking at Cardano. Sadly, and anyway, do I think it could potentially get back to $1, $1.20, maybe? But reaching its all-time high, there's other tokens that I would look at first. Solana is interesting. One of the worst blockchains ever right now because of so many problems. It was congested last week. 80% failed transaction rate. But that's where the people are going to trade the meme coins. You're talking about your whiff, your dog with hat, your BOEM, your book of meme, your other stuff. That's where people are going. So adoption is happening over at Solana. So that's going to drive price. And wherever the sheep are going, sometimes it's good to place a bet on that. And so I've done so with the other thing that you mentioned, Jupiter. Jupiter is actually the decentralized exchange where people can trade on the Solana blockchain, but trade and swap in and out of all these meme coins. So I'm a guy that's going to take this and say, you know what? I'm not going to try to pick every specific little coin in this situation, but I'm going to go to the company that's handling all those transactions, because that company allows for staking rewards, governance voting, airdrops, just by owning the token, and so many other things. So Jupiter, you mentioned that. That's a great one that I'm looking at because it's the place where everybody's using. If you want to talk about traffic, Jupiter has had the most traffic of any other exchange next to Uniswap now. We can talk about Uniswap sometime, but next to Uniswap that there is. And so obviously a lot of people going over there, and adoption rules everything in crypto. So that's my quick take on Solana, Jupiter, and Cardano. So,
well, you nailed Uni before. Are you still there, or have you moved out of that? We actually were doing a live show where you were watching it run up like crazy. You still like that one? Or I'm sorry, I'm asking one more than I promised I would, but just since you brought it up, I wanted to see if you're still there or if you've moved on that one.
So I absolutely love Uniswap. They are potentially doing a governance vote to allow token holders to get a fee sharing structure. But the issue with Uniswap is they just got served a Wells notice because the SEC is out to get anybody who's any type of player in crypto, very similar to what happened with Coinbase. They're going after them for being a custodial type wallet and some other things, a broker. Their allegations are quite frivolous, but it doesn't matter. You know this with any company in even in the Web 2 world. If they get served a notice, it's not great. Regardless, there's court costs, there's things that happen, there's procedural things, and then there's a waiting period. XRP was stuck in trials for 3 years. I don't think this will happen with Uniswap, but it's not a buy for me right now because I can't go buy it and get a good return out of it because of this is so frustrating. Wells notice. Otherwise, Uniswap checks every box on my list right there, and I love Uniswap. I use it 14 times a day.
Okay, do you? Well, we're talking about Coinbase. I think we'll wrap things up with that. And you mentioned the legislation there where they got a unfavorable court ruling. And the people that are going to make money out of all this are the attorneys, because everything I read is that's going all the way to the Supreme Court. It's going to take years to play out, but it did take the wind out of the sails of Coinbase when it was off and running. And so, like you said, it's kind of there's always that black cloud hanging over it, and I don't know if that's the place to be anymore, just because of that. So same thing you were just saying. But Brandon, I want to thank you so much for being on. I have missed doing these things. Proud of you and everything that you're accomplishing, and I hope everybody takes advantage of going to see you at your website, because, as I said, you're the best crypto expert that I know. So this is a great show, especially timely with the halving. I'm going to go find that countdown clock that you showed, and we'll see how that plays out tonight. But thanks again for being on, and have a great weekend, my friend. And
Thanks
for
so much, Bob.
everyone that's for everybody that's watching, and put up a real picture next time. For everyone that's watching, thanks for spending some of your Friday afternoon with us. Have a great rest of your weekend. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care, everybody.